Over the past century, cigarettes have transformed from an aristocratic pastime into a health hazard. Tobacco giants have concealed the dangers with lies, constantly reinventing deceptions from traditional cigarettes to e-cigarettes. As science and capital continue their ongoing battle, the global fight against tobacco remains a long and arduous journey. Only by exposing these deceptions and building consensus can we fortify the defenses for a smoke-free, healthy society. On an ordinary morning in 2025, Professor Li, chief physician of the respiratory department at a top-tier Beijing hospital, had barely taken a seat when the waiting chairs outside the clinic filled to capacity. Flipping through the appointment list, his brow furrowed of the 20 patients scheduled that morning. 12 presented with chronic cough and chest tightness, the youngest just 8 years old. As consultations began, a common thread emerged. Every patient had a family member who smoked regularly. No one would connect this seemingly ordinary doctor-patient scene with the rare imported novelty that had entered European aristocratic circles a century earlier. Yet this small white cigarette had long since evolved from a pastime for the privileged few into a health menace, lurking in millions of households. On the streets of Europe in 1900, cigarettes remained an exclusive possession of the aristocracy. The common folk rarely saw that white silhouette between fingers. In hospitals of that era, lung cancer was rarer than a comet striking Earth should a physician encounter a single case. The entire department would gather around, documenting every detail as if observing a priceless artifact. The fortunate patient might even have their name immortalized in medical texts. No one could have foreseen that this small white cigarette would, over the course of a century, transform into a deadly specter, dragging hundreds of millions into the abyss of ill health, and its rampage continues unabated to this day. The smoke of war became fertile ground for these specters spread. On the battlefields of 2 world wars, in the cold trenches and beside the deafening artillery fire, soldiers would always pull out a cigarette and light it. The orange-red glow flickered in the night, the fleeting numbness from nicotine becoming their sole antidote to terror. In 1941, a presidential order from U.S. President Roosevelt propelled tobacco into the mainstream, designating it a strategic wartime commodity, granting tobacco farmers generous tax exemptions. This policy acted like a shot in the arm, causing U.S. tobacco production to surge by 50% over 4 years. Cigarettes transformed from battlefield supplies into a trendy item pursued by the entire nation. After World War II, mass media became the cheerleader for tobacco giants. In movies, gentlemen in suits and ties held cigarettes between their fingers with elegant composure. In magazine ads, actresses exhaled smoke rings with dreamy, alluring gazes. Amid this relentless bombardment, smoking was packaged as a symbol of status and taste, sweeping across America. By the late 1940s, 4 out of 5 American men were smokers, ushering in the tobacco industry's dazzling golden age. Yet behind this illusory prosperity, a health crisis was quietly brewing. Cancer statistics from 1945 revealed lung cancer had surged to 20% of all cancers, a 20-fold increase from less than 1% half a century earlier. This jarring growth curve, like a venomous snake, was coiling around more and more. The medical community at the time was still locked in heated debate over the causes of lung cancer. Some pointed the finger at mustard gas from World War I. Others blamed the Industrial Revolution's choking smog. And one doctor even proposed the absurd hypothesis. Nylon stockings and smoking became popular around the same time. Perhaps stockings cause lung cancer. Graham, a thoracic surgeon at Washington University in St. Louis, was caught in this controversy. As a heavy smoker himself, he was deeply reluctant to believe cigarettes could be linked to lung cancer. So when his student Wind proposed researching the connection between smoking and lung cancer, Graham readily agreed, hoping the student would disprove this absurd hypothesis. Yet the experimental results dealt Graham a crushing blow. Windleblad surveyed 600 lung cancer patients and found nearly all were heavy smokers. He then conducted an experiment with 156 mice. 86 were exposed to tar equivalent to 1 pack of cigarettes 3 times weekly, while the rest were left untreated. After a period, 44% of the experimental group developed cancer, with only 10% surviving beyond 20 months. In contrast, the control group boasted a survival rate of 58%. In 1950, the pair published their findings in the Journal of the American Medical Association, conclusively demonstrating tobacco tar's carcinogenic effects on laboratory animals. This report sent shockwaves through society like a pebble dropped into a lake. Graham immediately quit smoking, but it was too late. 7 years later, he succumbed to lung cancer. Scientific truth did not halt the tobacco giants. Instead, they assembled an army of public relations spin doctors. Under the guidance of PR firms, the industry launched a creating doubt strategy, avoiding full-page newspaper ads in favor of statements like, "Rat experiments cannot prove smoking causes cancer. We are establishing a research committee to scientifically address public concerns." This tactic of feigned retreat successfully muddled public perception. They also enlisted authoritative experts to endorse claims that medical research requires time, cloaking their delay tactics in scientific legitimacy. After all, everyday scientific research lagged meant another day of ill-gotten profits. Ironically, as public awareness of cigarette hazards grew, tobacco companies resorted to health disguise tactics. Laurel and Alger Company pioneered filter-tipped Arrow cigarettes, touting pure, non-toxic filters that eliminate nicotine and tar concerns, while secretly adding asbestos, a potent carcinogen, to the filters. 40 years later, it emerged that 19 out of 35 workers who produced filter materials for this company over 5 years had died from cancer. Other brands followed suit. Pall Mall advertised 100% filtered smoke, while Lucky Strike brazenly claimed to be the doctor's choice. These deceptive claims cast a wide net, ensnaring countless citizens who trusted science. At the time, Americans aged 16 and older averaged a staggering 4,500 cigarettes per year. It wasn't until January 11, 1964, that the U.S. Surgeon General released a 150,000-word report, officially acknowledging for the first time the direct link between smoking and lung cancer. Yet this weighty report failed to immediately alter the status quo. The tobacco industry wielded immense political influence through lobbying and financial power. Representatives from the 6 major tobacco-producing states occupied nearly 1/3 of Congress, and the presidency depended on their electoral votes. Regulatory policies remained stalled. Americans' smoking rates remained stubbornly high, and tobacco giants continued expanding their profit empire atop the ruins of public health. The turning point in this decades-long battle came from a 25-year-old law graduate named John Bentz. He discovered that the Federal Communications Commission's fairness doctrine required broadcasters to provide airtime for opposing viewpoints. Through relentless advocacy, he finally secured television advertising opportunities for the Anti-Smoking Coalition. One anti-smoking ad became iconic. It showed the once majestic cowboy from Marlboro ads now hunched over and coughing incessantly, his former swagger completely gone. This ad pierced the false image crafted by tobacco companies like a sharp blade, leading to the first significant decline in cigarette sales. In January 1971, the last cigarette advertisement aired on American television, marking a breach in tobacco's public relations stronghold. Subsequently, the anti-smoking movement gained momentum. All 50 U.S. states gradually implemented stringent regulatory policies, and tobacco companies faced lawsuits demanding compensation for healthcare costs. By 2013, the U.S. smoking rate had dropped to 18%, seemingly bringing this century-long deception to an end. Yet globally, the specter of tobacco lingers. According to the latest 2025 data, 1 billion smokers remain worldwide, with 70% residing in developing nations. China alone accounts for over 300 million smokers, where the smoking rate among those aged 15 and above reaches 26.6%, soaring to 50.5% among men. The National Cancer Center's 2024 report reveals that China sees 1.0606 million new lung cancer cases annually, with 730,000 deaths solidifying its position as the #1 cancer killer. Half of these lung cancers are smoking-related, and over 80% of lung cancer patients have a history of smoking. Globally, over 6 million people die annually from smoking-related causes, equivalent to 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 passenger planes crashing every hour, with no survivors. Smoking claimed 100 million lives in the 20th century, and the death toll in the 21st century may surpass 1 billion. From battlefield comfort to mass-adopted trend item, from scientific exposure to corporate concealment, this small cigarette has borne the weight of too many desires and conspiracies. The tragedy once played out in the United States is now repeating itself in our country. If humanity cannot resist the lure of profit and moral awareness fails to advance, even the most advanced medical technology will struggle to break free from this cycle of tobacco harm. The white specter between our fingers will continue to haunt the world. More alarmingly, as the dangers of traditional cigarettes gain public recognition, the tobacco industry has not retreated. Instead, it has adopted a new guise, expanding its reach through more covert means to ensnare broader demographics. This century-long battle has thus ignited fresh smoke. In 2019, an announcement by India's finance minister captured global attention. India would impose a comprehensive ban on all aspects of e-cigarettes, including production, import, export, sales, and advertising. This policy emerged in response to the rapid global proliferation of e-cigarettes, particularly their severe impact on youth populations. E-cigarettes, also known as heat-not-burn tobacco products, operate by vaporizing nicotine and other substances into inhalable aerosols. Tobacco companies market them as tar-free, healthier alternatives, and quit smoking aids, aggressively promoting them through online platforms. In China, e-cigarettes have spread with equal speed. A survey by the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention shows that compared to 2015, the proportions of the public who have heard of e-cigarettes, have used them, and are currently using them have all shown a significant upward trend. Young people constitute the main user group, with the internet becoming their primary source for obtaining e-cigarettes, accounting for nearly 50%. However, the notion of healthy e-cigarettes is merely another elaborate deception by the tobacco industry following filtered cigarettes. Authoritative medical research confirms that the vapor from e-cigarettes contains not only high concentrations of nicotine but also carcinogens like formaldehyde and acetaldehyde, along with toxic components such as heavy metals and propylene glycol. More alarmingly, statistics reveal that in 2015, only 2,070 adults successfully quit traditional cigarettes through e-cigarettes, while 168,000 adolescents began smoking traditional cigarettes after using e-cigarettes, a staggering ratio of 1:81. This indicates that e-cigarettes not only fail to achieve their intended goal of smoking cessation but have instead become a gateway for adolescents to tobacco use, draw more young people into the ranks of tobacco dependence. A report released at the 2025 World Conference on Tobacco Control revealed that to curb this trend, the number of countries globally regulating or banning e-cigarettes has risen from 122 in 2022 to 133 in 2024. An increasing number of nations are recognizing the dangers of e-cigarettes and proactively strengthening their tobacco control defenses. The tobacco industry's schemes extend beyond false advertising of new products. They lurk in the overlooked invisible smoke. Most smokers harbor the misconception that avoiding harm is possible simply by not smoking in front of family members or by ventilating rooms. Yet the reality is quite the opposite. Beyond the primary smoke inhaled by smokers and the secondary smoke inhaled by others, the third-hand smoke lingering in the environment after smoking is equally a health killer that cannot be ignored. The concept of third-hand smoke was first introduced by the Harvard Cancer Center in 2009. It refers to the residual smoke particles that remain on clothing, walls, carpets, furniture and even hair and skin surfaces. These substances include 11 highly carcinogenic compounds such as nicotine derivatives, heavy metals, carcinogens and radioactive materials. They can persist in the environment for months and react with other compounds in the air to form new toxic mixtures. In December 2025, a report published by Guangming Online revealed just the tip of the iceberg regarding the dangers of third-hand smoke. A large-scale multinational study conducted by 6 major European pediatric cohorts confirmed that even when mothers completely abstained from smoking during pregnancy, children exposed to household secondhand smoke during their development exhibited significant alterations in their blood DNA. Researchers tracked 2,695 school-age children aged 7 to 9 genome-wide scans revealed that secondhand smoke altered the positions of 11 gene switches in children. The more smokers present in the household, the more pronounced the changes in DNA methylation became. DNA serves as the body's instruction manual, and methylation is akin to scribbling on this manual, causing the body to misinterpret or incorrectly execute growth and development commands. Among these 11 affected genes, 4 are concentrated in the MYO1G gene, which directs immune cells to patrol and combat pathogens. Abnormally elevated methylation levels in this gene lead to a sluggish immune response in children, making them more susceptible to illness and prolonging disease duration. The PDE108 gene is closely linked to lung inflammation and serves as a key mediator in asthma induction. The newly identified CTDSPL2 gene is also directly related to lung function. Abnormal expression of these genes plants seeds of inflammatory risk in children's lungs. Most alarmingly, the newly identified FIBCD1 gene forms a vital component of the lung's defense barrier, responsible for recognizing and repelling foreign pathogens. Its methylation alterations weaken the lung's protective capacity. Furthermore, abnormal expression of this gene has been repeatedly observed in head and neck cancer studies, suggesting that secondhand smoke's harm to children may manifest decades later as cancer. Crucially, rigorous sensitivity tests revealed that even when the study was restricted to families where mothers abstained completely from alcohol and smoking during pregnancy, alterations at 11 DNA sites persisted in children, with the correlation strength remaining nearly unchanged. This finding shatters the illusion that innate health guarantees safety and definitively refutes the notion that smoking outside is safe for children in their active growth and development phase. With rapidly dividing cells, third-hand smoke particles clinging to family members, clothing and residual smoke toxins in the air can enter the body through breathing, skin contact, or even oral ingestion, triggering long-term epigenetic changes. Fortunately, unlike DNA sequence mutations, methylation marks can potentially be reverted when environmental exposure ceases. This serves as a stark reminder to every family. Protecting children from tobacco harm extends far beyond the 10 months of pregnancy. Demands creating a truly smoke-free environment for their growth. The harm caused by tobacco has long transcended individual health, becoming a global public health crisis. The National Cancer Center's 2024 report reveals that China sees 1.0606 million new lung cancer cases annually, with 730,000 deaths from the disease, solidifying its position as the #1 cancer killer. Among these, 50% of lung cancers are caused by smoking, and over 80% of lung cancer patients have a history of smoking. Globally, smoking claims over 6 million lives annually, equivalent to 2 fully loaded Boeing 747s crashing every hour with no survivors. The 20th century saw 100 million smoking-related deaths. And current trends suggest the 21st century could surpass 1 billion fatalities. Behind these stark statistics lie countless shattered families and profound grief, while also imposing immense burdens on healthcare systems worldwide. Facing this severe crisis, global tobacco control efforts are steadily advancing. In 2005, the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control (FCTC) formally entered into force, providing a unified action guide for national tobacco control efforts. The Empower Tobacco Control measures proposed by the World Health Organization monitoring tobacco use and prevention policies, protecting people from tobacco smoke, providing cessation support, warning about tobacco harms, enforcing tobacco advertising bans, and raising tobacco taxes have become core strategies in global tobacco control. The 2025 Global Tobacco Epidemic Report released at the 2025 World Conference on Tobacco Control indicates that between 2007 and 2023, the global average smoking rate declined from 22.3% to 16.4%, representing a relative decrease of 26% over 16 years. WHO recommended tobacco control measures now cover over 6.1 billion people worldwide, more than 6 times the coverage in 2007. 79 countries have implemented comprehensive smoke-free environment policies, protecting approximately one-third of the global population. These figures demonstrate that scientifically sound tobacco control measures can significantly reduce tobacco-related harm and establish a vital defense for public health. China's tobacco control efforts have also achieved breakthrough progress under strong national policy impetus. The Healthy China 2030 Planning Outline issued in 2016 and the Healthy China Initiative released in 2019 explicitly set strategic goals, reducing the adult smoking rate to below 20% by 2030 and ensuring 80% of the population is protected by smoke-free regulations. Since 2018, the National Health Commission has spearheaded tobacco control efforts, implementing policies to raise public awareness and enhance smoke-free environments. By June 2025, 254 cities nationwide had enacted smoke-free regulations, with 24 cities achieving comprehensive smoke-free legislation, successfully protecting 229 million people from secondhand smoke exposure. Monitoring data shows that China's secondhand smoke exposure rate has significantly decreased from 76.3% in 2015 to 46.5% in 2024. The latest global adult tobacco survey data indicates that China's adult smoking rate dropped to 23.2% in 2024, a 0.9 percentage point decrease from 2022, demonstrating a steady downward trend. At the 2025 World Conference on Tobacco Control, Zhao Dong, president of the Beijing Smoking Control Association and director of the Tobacco Control and Respiratory Disease Prevention Department at China-Japan Friendship Hospital, emphasized that the adoption and implementation of the Empower comprehensive measures are crucial for tobacco control. China's tobacco control experience has been shared at international conferences, and achieving breakthroughs in more tobacco control policies would contribute significantly to the global tobacco control effort. However, China's tobacco control efforts still face numerous challenges. Taking Beijing as an example, residential buildings, office restrooms, and ride-hailing vehicles have become high-risk areas for illegal smoking, posing enforcement difficulties. Smoking in these spaces is often concealed, making it hard to detect and stop promptly. This requires further optimization of the social co-governance model for tobacco control, mobilizing public participation in supervision. Furthermore, public awareness of the dangers of secondhand and third-hand smoke remains insufficient. Some segments of the population underestimate the harms of tobacco, and the willingness to actively discourage illegal smoking is weak, which also hinders the deepening of tobacco control efforts. Reflecting on America's tobacco control journey, The battle spanned decades from the government's first official acknowledgement of the link between smoking and lung cancer in 1964 to the 1971 ban on television tobacco advertising and the subsequent implementation of strict control policies across all 50 states. Throughout this period, the tobacco industry employed various tactics including financial lobbying and misleading public discourse to obstruct policy implementation, making the control process arduous. Only when anti-tobacco forces steadily mobilized combining legal, public opinion, and policy measures did the tide gradually turn, reducing smoking rates from a peak of 80% to 18% by 2013. The U.S. experience demonstrates that tobacco control is a protracted battle requiring coordinated efforts from governments, society, and individuals, while steadfastly resisting the tobacco industry's financial inducements and interference. Today, a global wave of tobacco control has emerged, yet the tobacco industry's counterattacks persist. Beyond promoting e-cigarettes and obscuring the dangers of third-hand smoke, some multinational tobacco companies have shifted their focus to developing countries with relatively lax tobacco control policies. According to the latest 2025 data, 70% of the world's 1 billion smokers reside in developing countries. China alone has over 300 million smokers, with a smoking rate of 26.6% among those aged 15 and above, and a staggering 50.5% among men. These figures serve as a stark warning that China remains a major battleground against tobacco harm, and the fight against smoking is far from over. In some developing nations, tobacco companies expand market share through low-price strategies and localized marketing. Simultaneously, they exploit local economic development needs, using excuses like increasing tax revenue and promoting employment to interfere with the formulation and implementation of tobacco control policies. This traps these countries in a dilemma between economic interests and public health. In reality, the tobacco industry's purported economic contributions represent nothing more than a short-sighted illusion. The indirect costs incurred by tobacco, including healthcare expenditures and lost productivity, far exceed its tax revenues. Studies indicate that smoking-related direct medical costs and indirect economic losses in China amount to hundreds of billions of yuan annually, imposing a heavy burden on socioeconomic development. Conversely, tobacco control measures not only safeguard public health but also yield significant economic benefits. Increasing tobacco taxes is a win-win measure. It reduces tobacco consumption, boosts fiscal revenue, and lowers healthcare expenditures. WHO data shows that a 10% increase in tobacco taxes reduces global consumption by approximately 4%, with low- and middle-income countries experiencing declines exceeding 5%. In this century-long battle against tobacco deception, we witness the clash between science and capital, and the struggle between life and profit. From Graham's tragedy to Wenda's steadfastness, from Zheng Manxi's tireless advocacy to the coordinated efforts of global anti-tobacco activists, countless individuals have dedicated immense effort to exposing tobacco's truth and advancing tobacco control. Today, we possess sufficient scientific evidence to confirm tobacco's dangers and have developed effective control measures. Yet this battle is far from over. The tobacco industry's schemes persist in new guises. Public health awareness requires further elevation. Tobacco control policies demand continuous reinforcement. At the 2025 World Conference on Tobacco Control, public health experts, policymakers, and advocates from around the world gathered to explore pathways for addressing tobacco control challenges and building future systems. The conference focused on critical issues such as curbing the tobacco industry's interference in policymaking, enhancing smoking cessation support services, and combating illicit tobacco trade, charting a course for global tobacco control efforts. In an interview, The relevant official emphasized the need to continuously strengthen public awareness campaigns and media outreach regarding tobacco-related measures, focusing on fostering a supportive social environment for the general public. Rejecting tobacco and avoiding smoke is a fundamental responsibility to protect one's own and family members' health. We must recognize hidden dangers like e-cigarettes and third-hand smoke. Discard misconceptions such as smoking is a personal freedom or light smoking is harmless. Actively resist tobacco temptations and participate in tobacco control actions. For smokers, quitting is not only a responsibility to oneself but also to family and society. Today, comprehensive smoking cessation support systems have been established nationwide. Through professional medical guidance and psychological support, these services significantly boost quit rates. With unwavering determination, individuals can break free from tobacco's grip and reclaim their health. Looking back over a century of tobacco history, that small white cigarette has transformed from a pastime of the aristocracy into a health killer affecting all people. Through scientific exposure and public resistance, it has gradually lost its allure. This century-long battle teaches us that the greed of capital never ceases. Only by upholding scientific truth, strengthening policy defenses, and building social consensus can we completely dispel this white specter from our fingertips. Only when every household is free from smoke's intrusion, every child grows up in smoke-free environments, and every life is shielded from tobacco's harm will this century-long struggle truly triumph. Achieving this day demands the perseverance of every individual, the concerted effort of all society, and, above all, our unwavering conviction. Health always outweighs profit, and a life is forever worthy of cherishing.